Today's video is going to be a little bit different. Instead of a funny sketch at the beginning of the video, we've decided we're going to add some stakes because James has actually put a deposit down on one of these cars. How much was the deposit again?
10 grand in the end.
10 grand.
10 grand,
okay.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the video, James is going to decide whether or not he's actually going to follow through and take delivery
Of a Lotus Emira. But it was refundable, so the deposit was refundable.
No, it's not. You have build date, right?
Only technically.
No, only literally. You're not getting... watching Throttle House. I'm Thomas.
And I'm James.
And this is the Lotus Emira.
And yes, about a year ago, I placed an order for one. And that's not something I do often. In fact, the last impractical fun car I bought was an MX-5 in 2017.
James, what's an impractical fun car? Oh, you wanted to say the last sports car you bought, didn't you? But you had to say impractical fun car because you were worried people would say the Miata isn't a sports car?
No. Yes. Anyway, stunned by its beauty, I thought that if this Emira is even 90% of the drive of the Evora GT we had just tested, with all the added refinement that it promised, and that new look, well, then I was in. The Emira teased all the right sports car ingredients, and even fully spec'd, it has a price tag of under 100 grand US. That doesn't mean that 95 grand or 120 Canadian isn't an awful lot of money though.
And ever since James placed the order, he's been a mess. Umming and hawing and going back and forth. It feels silly, he says. It feels irresponsible. What more can it provide in Toronto than an MX-5? What does it have over a Cayman that means he can ignore its lots of trouble, usually serious reputation? Needless to say, he's been nervous about testing this thing. But alas, that day has come. It's time to find out if the Emira is worthy. And while today we're just driving a test car, we decided we would sit down and take a close look at the spec that James has chosen for his. Or ours now, I guess.
And if you're new to Throttle House, we do car reviews, track tests, and quite a lot of messing about. So subscribe, hit the bell.
Alright, Thomas, this is not a Cayman, okay? There's not 50 million options. There's only a few things you can choose, which I've lost sleep over each one. And the first decision is a supercharged V6 or a turbocharged i4.
That's gotta be pretty easy.
Yeah. I've chosen the same engine that's in this vehicle, the supercharged V6. It's a Camry V6 with a Lotus supercharger on it. It's good for 400 horsepower. Now credit to the AMG 4-cylinder, that can do 360 horsepower from a 4-cylinder. But for me, for a sports car, I don't want a turbocharged car. I love a naturally aspirated car, and the only thing that comes second to that, with a very close second, is a supercharged one. Progressive. It feels naturally aspirated, but just assisted. In this form, the Emira is good for 0 to 60 in just over 4 seconds. That's plenty quick enough for me. It's not C8 Stingray quick, but my God, does it sound good. I've got plenty of intake noise coming from the engine behind me. And then on the overrun, it burbles and crackles. Now, people have complained that this doesn't quite rev high enough. Because when you do look at a Cayman GTS 4 litre, that thing revs to 8,000 RPM, and I totally get that. That's monstrous. But this revs to 6,800. If I remember correctly, the Evora revved to 6,600 in Tour and 7,000 in Sport. But this 6,800 lasts plenty long enough for me, especially around these canyons. What a lovely power plant. I kind of wish it banged off the rev limiter rather than shutting down the power the way it does. But I like the short gearing and constantly shifting gears in this. But that's in part to the other decision that I've made. All right, so that's the engine.
Yeah.
The next decision that it gives you on the website is transmission.
Which one did you choose, James?
Yes. This is a 6-speed manual transmission. And because of the short gearing, I'm constantly engaging with this car. It is absolutely a driver's car. It says it in a very cringy way on the key, but it is actually true. The shifts are so purposeful and mechanical. You've got to give it some, which I kind of like. I find that in the Cayman GTS and some other cars, it's a little bit too assisted. And you can even see through the mesh in the console, the mechanism. How rewarding is that? And that's not the only mechanism you can see. As I apply throttle in my rear view, it's just, Lotus understands something. They don't understand like dealer networks and delay times and suddenly increased prices in England, but man, do they know how to build a sports car. The clutch is lighter than I remember the Evora being. We got stuck in some pretty bad traffic in the Evora, and I remember Thomas complaining of a sore foot. This, oh, great downshifts. This you could daily. You could drive this across the country. It's an incredibly livable manual transmission. Where the livability is potentially threatened is the other choice I've made. Okay, so this next one is a really, really big one, all right? On the Emira, you can only have passive dampers.
Okay.
So for suspension choices, you either get the Touring from factory or you get the Sport from factory.
Right.
Which is harsher riding.
Okay.
And I've been on the forums, I've been on the Facebook groups, everyone is dying over this choice. I got the yellow brake calipers.
Okay.
I got the diamond cut wheels.
Okay.
Which look fantastic.
I don't usually like diamond cut wheels,
No.
but they look good in this.
They will look good for it. You'll like it because it's ours.
Yeah.
And then the interior, same as this Alcantara, but instead I think I did a yellow stitch, which offsets.
Yellow stitch.
Yeah, it works really well with the blue.
Okay.
I've spec'd many a Cayman exactly the same way.
Right.
So
And never pulled the trigger.
never pulled the trigger.
With our money.
Yes.
So, I really like the interior of this car, visually and like in terms of like design. I think you got some manual climate control stuff going on
Oh,
here.
it feels like a modern car.
I got a manual